stop. Just stop. Stop talking about the Erika Candace wars. These are some of the comments that I get. We're going to be talking about this. We're going to be going through comments on various channels. Charlie Kirk has come out swinging against Candace Owens. And Candace Owens is rolling up her sleeves. And we're going to talk about it on this channel. We're going to talk about both sides. What do both sides have to win? And what do both sides have to lose? After all, you're on a Black Swan channel. So welcome to Black Swan Revelations.
In a dark world, remember to be the light. Welcome to Black Swan Revelations. Here is your host, the Black Swan himself, Shane.
When I started Black Swan Revelations, the very first video I created was about President Zelensky from Ukraine. I said, something is weird. Russia invaded Ukraine, and it was basically February 22nd, 2022, when I made my first video. I decided to make a YouTube channel to document these crazy conspiracy stories that were happening in the world. I wanted to document it. I originally called my channel Black Swan Diaries because I felt that there is a narrative that could be erased and hard to find. So I thought it would be good, even from my own personal records, to record the things that I'm talking about and then come back a couple of years later and revisit those things because it's on record. So this is why I record these type of videos. It's not to get you all mad and then you start commenting and you're like, you're picking sides, don't do that, and then you unsubscribe. But what you do is you tell me you're unsubscribing and you unsubscribe. It's kind of weird. It's almost like manipulation, like you're trying to control what I talk about on this channel, and I will not be controlled that way. I can't. I think more people appreciate what I'm bringing to the table because I come at it from a Christian. I come at it from a Bible believer, as in I read the Bible every single day. I'm just finishing up the book of Jeremiah. Powerful book. So I have a lot of insights to share and compare to what's going on to the Bible, what was going on in the Old Testament, the New Testament, and then what's going on today. Wars, rumors of wars, all that kind of stuff. So I will continue to talk about it. And it's not about views and clicks because, again, when I talk about Candace Owens and Erika on my channel, it doesn't get the most views. It doesn't. Instead, if I were to talk about the rapture, that gets the most views. It does. So really, if I wanted to get tons and tons of views, that's all I would do every single day is talk about the rapture. But I don't. I talk about the Bible. I go verse by verse, talk about books in the Bible. I talk about AI technology. I talk about conspiracies, everything on my channel that's pointed towards Black Swan events. And again, 15 minutes after Charlie Kirk was assassinated, I was doing a live. I jumped on doing a live because I wanted to document it, because I strongly felt that they were going to erase what had actually happened and change the narrative. That was on day one. I didn't know why I was recording it. I didn't know why I said this is a Black Swan event. It just felt like it. And I will double down on that now and say this was indeed a Black Swan event. So the three things that you need to fulfill a Black Swan event is it has to be highly improbable. That is the first thing. So what do we mean by that? It's you can't predict it. You can't predict it. You can say on this certain day Charlie Kirk was going to get assassinated. You can say that, but I never heard anybody do that, because then you're now a part of it. If you say things like that, that I think at precisely this event and all this stuff, you know something that most people don't. And usually what happens is, like, for example, Pearl Harbor. The United States did not, as a whole, did not know that Japan was going to attack Pearl Harbor. That is a black swan event, because the majority did not know about it. And it changed your world. You entered into World War II. It changed everything. You changed all your auto plants into building munitions. So that changed your world forever. America became a war machine after that. So there are things that happen that have to change the world almost overnight. And you could say, well, people knew, Americans knew about Pearl Harbor before it happened. That doesn't make it not a black swan event, because Japan had prepared for 6 to 9 months before they invaded Pearl Harbor, but the Japanese citizens didn't know. Sure, a handful of generals knew that they were going to attack, but even then they didn't even know that they were waking up a sleeping giant. That's what they were on record after they attacked Pearl Harbor. They realized that they woke up a sleeping giant. 9/11 was a black swan event. It changed your world overnight in America. And then afterwards, you get people saying people knew about it. That's part of the DNA of a black swan event, is when you say people knew before it happened. That's called explaining it away. And you're going to get people from both sides that say that they knew about it. They say the same thing. Somebody knew about it, either on the inside or on the outside. The people planning it knew it. The people on the inside knew it, but they did nothing. That's the DNA of a black swan event. And this is what's happening with the Charlie Kirk assassination. It was done in broad daylight, in public, with cameras everywhere. People were rolling, and the only cameras that we get to see are fuzzy cameras from only a couple of angles, a handful of angles. And then everything is blurred out now. Everything is blurred out for our protection. And yet you can go onto YouTube and search and look at people getting shot and murdered and all kinds of crazy stuff on YouTube. And it's up for years, beheadings, whatever it is, you name it, you could find it on YouTube. But yet when we're trying to investigate something like what really happened with Charlie Kirk, was he electrocuted? Some people are talking about that. Is Charlie Kirk alive today? Is he alive? Why? Because they're not giving us enough information to say, look, we have 100% proof that Tyler Robinson was the lone gunman. We have proof. We're not going to show you everything, but you will see it on the day of court. We have, folks, this is nothing. We have absolute 100% proof. But instead, when asked the question, are you 100% that you caught the killer, we get answers like this.
This is what happens when you let good cops be cops. The FBI and our partners are proud to stand here today together to bring justice to the family of Charlie Kirk and honor his memory. I want to express my deep gratitude to President Trump, the Vice President, and the entire White House, who have been so incredibly supportive with both resources and just personally to the FBI as a team. They had our backs the entire way, and I just want to express my gratitude for giving us the resources we need to operate in this space to bring this sort of justice at this sort of speed. In 33 hours, we have made historic progress for Charlie. Governor Cox, Our partnership has been absolutely incredible.
Right there. In 33 hours, this is historic justice. It was a weird thing to say right out of the gates, specifically 33 hours after Charlie Kirk was assassinated, that they found the killer. They found him within 33 hours. Thanks to Donald Trump for having our backs. I have to figure out what that means. Not getting in the way, perhaps, of the investigation or whatever, but this was a closed, done deal. 33 hours later, done. Got the killer. It's over. It's over. Let's continue.
These last few days, our partnership will endure. Your state and local partners, your sheriffs, your DPS community has been unbelievably impressive in the hardest of times. And a case like this cannot be solved, cannot be brought without partnering with your state and local authorities. The FBI has a certain role to play, and we will play that role, and we will lead out for the federal government. But Governor Cox, we are so grateful for your state partnership that led out on this investigation. A little bit of the timeline. Charlie was shot at 12:23 p.m. on Wednesday. The first FBI agents arrived on scene in 16 minutes with chiefs of police at 12:39 and secured the scene.
So within 16 minutes, the FBI showed up at 12:39. So I'm going to write that down because I want to look into this. That was approximately the time that I went on live. So, which is interesting. I didn't know that it was that quick that they had FBI people there, which, if you think about it, to have FBI agents there within 16 minutes, that's really quick. That is like going from basically one side of the campus to the other side. You grab a cup of coffee, you go to the other side, and you're there. Like, it's really quick. To have a mass amount of FBI agents on the scene, I would have expected, and this is just me going Black Swanny, I would have expected you guys to show up within 33 hours. That would have been reasonable. We had to fly there. We had to organize FBI, all the stuff. So what we did is with local law enforcement, with the Utah law enforcement, because we work in coalition with them, they secured the area with police tape, everything. You cannot go in there. We told everybody, do not touch the cameras. Do not take SD cards out of cameras. Do not film yourself doing interviews or anything like that inside the parameters. This is under a murder investigation. So you rope that whole area off. You don't taint anything. You don't wash anything. You don't tamper with anything that Charlie Kirk touched. You don't touch the phone of his. Nothing. That's what I would expect. But within 16 minutes, you're there, which means you were there asking someone to take the footage out of the camera and hand it to you, because TPUSA has been on record saying they gave it to the FBI right away. Again, according to Petel, they were there. So my question is, why was the FBI there at the scene of the crime before it happened? Again, 16 minutes later, you were there. That's almost impossible. With all the traffic, with all the crowd, everything there, to be there. It took about 2 to 3 minutes to get Charlie Kirk into the vehicle from when it happened And then, so you're saying within 12 minutes later, while they're all rushing, people are rushing in every direction, you were there within 12 minutes? That's impossible. Traffic is leaving. You're going to hit bumper to bumper traffic because people are panicked, and you're there on site on the campus within 16 minutes, according to your words. This is why this stuff is so bizarre, world. This is why we're talking about this. Have I said anything bad about Erika? No. Have I said anything bad about Candace? No. Have I said anything bad about TPUSA? No. I said they gave the camera footage to the FBI because that's what they said. Petel said he was there within 16 minutes. I'm saying that feels like it's a little weird to have a tight time frame like that. It's a little weird. I'm just stating the obvious. That's it. And people get so mad at this kind of stuff. You have to have the ability to reason your way through things. And I think that's why my audience comes to this channel. It's because they want real answers. And the only way to get real answers is to ask real questions. Let's continue.
The FBI immediately launched fixed-wing assets. We
Let me
let out
back
on
up.
this
Let me
plane. We
back
will
up.
play that role, and we will lead out for the federal government. But Governor Cox, we are so grateful for your state partnership that led out on this investigation. A little bit of the timeline. Charlie was shot at 12:23 p.m. on Wednesday. The first FBI agents arrived on scene in 16 minutes with chiefs of police at 12:39 and secured the scene. The FBI immediately launched fixed-wing assets. We utilized these assets to transport personnel, specialty technicians, hostage rescue teams. We also utilized these assets to go back and forth from the East Coast and here in Utah to transport personnel to the scene. The FBI immediately launched fixed-wing assets.
Fixed wing assets. I never caught that before. That's something interesting. Let me look up what that is. All right. So if we look up, what does this mean? So I looked this up on ChatGPT. So take this with a grain of salt. When Cash Petel or another official says, maybe I'll show the screen here so you guys can see this here. All right. So when Cash Petel or another officer says the FBI immediately launched fixed wing assets, they're using aviation language. Planes, airports, jets, all this kind of stuff. What fixed wing assets means, fixed wing aircraft are airplanes with rigid wings as opposed to helicopters which have rotary blades. So remember, Candace is talking about Egyptian planes. Why are all these planes around at these various airports? Why are they going back and forth? So Petel says, look, part of this is us. Within 16 minutes, we activated fixed assets. So we're going to be having planes at our disposal. Again, this is not a conspiracy to have this, okay? To have at their disposal. In FBI terms, fixed wing assets equals FBI operated airplanes used for surveillance, tracking, and coordination. What the FBI uses fixed wing aircraft for. When the FBI launches fixed wing assets, it usually means they deployed planes to provide aerial surveillance over a wide area, track vehicles, or persons of interest for long distances. That's interesting. Coordinate ground teams with real-time aerial view. Cover territory quickly where helicopters would be too slow or short range. So they're not talking about the immediate area. They're talking about long range surveillance, perhaps following other countries of interest. Support manhunts, terrorism cases. So this is something that you do in a terrorist case. Kidnappings. Again, was Charlie Kirk kidnapped? Was he kidnapped? I know it's a conspiracy, but there are people that believe that Charlie Kirk is alive. There are. You can't deny that. I can't say 0% of the population thinks that Charlie Kirk is alive. It's kind of the same thing with Elvis. There are some people that say that Elvis died a natural life, like he lived to an old age and died. I don't believe that, but there are people that believe that. There are people that believe that that Charlie Kirk was not assassinated. He might have been electrocuted, knocked out, and then they took him somewhere. I have a theory about that. I have a theory about it. I think he's mostly dead. Sounds like Princess Bride, right? This person is mostly dead. Because again, we're not getting all the evidence. And obviously, because there's a trial now, we're probably going to get less and less and less. So this is why we're talking about just the basic stuff so far. We're not talking about anything crazy. We're just saying, here's what Petel said. This is what this means. Long endurance, hours. So these aircraft often fly high and quietly, sometimes in circling patterns, and can stay airborne for many hours. And Candace Owens said, look, this is what these people are doing. I've watched, and this is so funny. This is why if people haven't watched my channel for a while, we'll go back to this because I think this is important. I'll have to make a part 2 of this, or part 3, because this is this is interesting. Because last summer, or this past summer, I was following an organization called Rainmaker, and I subscribed to air traffic radar control, whatever, where you can actually track planes. So I was tracking planes in the summertime, and I was in Phoenix as well, going back and forth to visit my family, and we would drive past Charlie Kirk and Erika's place. We'd go by there because my family lives in Scottsdale. So it's interesting. They moved there last year in October. So a year ago, just over a year ago. And it's a small world because I've made several trips back and forth from Phoenix to Calgary to go visit them. And then when this assassination happened, it perked my interest because Charlie Kirk is from Phoenix. And we actually drove through Utah last October. We drove from Calgary to Phoenix. So through Utah, through Vegas to Phoenix. And we took our time because we had to bring my daughter's dog, my daughter and her husband's dog. And we're talking about Cash Petel. Guess what their dog's name is? Cash. Right? So we go through Utah with this dog, this black lab, because he's too big for the plane and he would get all stressed out. So we offered to drive all the way to Phoenix. I don't recommend. I recommend doing it once, but I don't recommend doing it every year. That was enough for me. That was a long drive. It took us like 18 hours to drive. Yeah, crazy. And so we stayed overnight at an Airbnb in Utah. And I remember driving through Utah and I'm like, I can't believe how many temples these people have here. There was like a temple, it felt like on every block in Utah. It was weird. So when you have, I'd be curious to kind of do a little bit of a diagram and see where this campus is in relationship to all of these temples that are in Utah. It's weird, right? So I also know, and maybe this is a video I'll talk about a little bit later. I don't want to mention any names or anything, but I know of a place that we're actually a memorial center that was actually waiting for the body of Charlie Kirk because they were going to prepare it and all this kind of stuff for the funeral and all this stuff. But the body never came, and they were waiting for it. And this is unusual. This is unusual because what happens is, and I should get a funeral director. I have a buddy that's a funeral director. I should get him and ask him, how does it work when it comes to funerals? Because this organization said that they were waiting for the body of Charlie Kirk, and they were waiting and waiting and waiting, and the body never came. And they were all ready. They're prepped. They're ready to go. So this is a viable source. They were the ones that got the call to say, we're bringing Charlie Kirk for you to prepare for his burial, for his funeral, all this kind of stuff. And he never came there. Never came there. So he might have been diverted somewhere else, but they got the calls from the family saying, we're bringing him there. They booked it. It was booked. And he never showed up. So I'm going to be talking about that in the next episode. So you don't want to miss that. This is why people are like, did he really die? And again, I'm leaning on, yes, he did. But that's mysterious to have a funeral home that gets the call saying, we're bringing Charlie Kirk to you. And he never comes. He never shows up. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more. Again, I don't want to reveal my source. I don't want to reveal names or anything like this, but I do have a connection with Phoenix. I do have a connection there. I'm telling you, it's a small world. So what I was saying was I was following all these planes, and even in my area, I was watching the planes seeding, and they were circling around Cochrane, which is where I live. Circling around and around and around, and I was tracking these planes. I was writing it down, all the names, and you could see one of my shows, I actually do a live tracking of planes. So when Candace Owens mentions the same company that she used to track all these planes, you got my ear now. I'm like, whoa, this is interesting. That's what I did in the summer. Actually, a month before Charlie Kirk was assassinated, I was tracking planes. And I paid for the subscription for like a year to track planes, because if you pay for the subscription, you can go back, I think, up to 3 years tracking these planes. So I'm going to make an episode about that, kind of tying this in. But now we're getting Petel saying, look, this is what we did. I'm just going to read this real quick, and then we're going to wrap up the show. I know we're just getting into the meat of this stuff, but I think this is important to just be surgical when it comes to this and not be conspiracy driven. And so far, I don't think we're conspiracy driven, right? Other than the funeral thing. But again, that's an eyewitness saying, look, we were waiting for him to show up here. Now, I'm not saying he never did get buried. I'm saying he didn't show up there. They might have changed their mind. People have a right to change their mind about where you're going to take your spouse, your significant other. Let's go back to this here. Fixed wings versus helicopters. So they chose fixed wing aircraft versus helicopters. I would have thought helicopters would have been more important to follow the murderer. But they're using long endurance aircrafts to be able to follow these planes to other countries. Long endurance hours, large area coverage, faster travel between cities or states, often less noticeable from the ground. And rotary rings, on the other side of it, is hovering, precise, close in. They use them to insert or extract people. So what Petel likely meant by immediately, that word signals the incident was treated as serious and time sensitive. FBI escalated beyond normal field response. National or regional aviation resources were activated fast. In plain language, it means we put surveillance planes in air right airway to track, monitor, and coordinates the response. Folks, we're just getting deeper down this rabbit hole. In fact, what I'm doing is I'm actually closing the rabbit hole above me and I'm sealing it shut. This is getting crazy. I'm telling you, this rabbit hole is very, very, very deep. So we're going to be talking about this in the next episode on Monday. I'm telling you, we're just scratching the surface. You do not want to miss this next episode. I'm not even going to end this with my typical ending. I'm telling you guys, subscribe to this channel, leave a comment, and I'll see you in the next video on Monday. Bye for now.